Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today I'm going to be looking at Invocation, the latest completed Kickstarter from King's Wild Project and designer Jackson Robinson. And these have been a long time coming. It's been almost a year since these funded back in March 2019, and they're only just now getting into the hands of backers. That said, I am incredibly excited to have these and check these out, so let's get started. Now, first off, the inspiration behind the deck. This is one of my favorite things about Jackson Robinson's art is just the number of different places that he draws inspiration from in his decks. He has, the Tigers deck that's inspired from the art of matchbook covers. The Crazy Eights deck actually does an exploration into chalkboard art. But this one is actually just inspired by a song called Invocation by Audiomachine. Audiomachine's a California-based music production company. They do really epic, sweeping music for like video games and movie trailers. So you've probably heard them because their music has been featured on trailers from things like Avengers, The Hobbit, at least one of the Harry Potter movies. So you've probably heard their music at some point without realizing it. But they have this song called Invocation. Came on Jackson's playlist one day while he was searching for inspiration for a deck. And he just loved those sweeping, epic tones throughout it. I'll put a link to where you can listen to the song if you're interested in it. But it's just a really beautiful, powerful piece of music. And it was listening to that Jackson Robinson designed this entire deck. So let's jump into it. Now, it comes in two different versions, or two different styles here. You have the copper and the platinum. So two of those here. The copper, I guess I would call the more standard of the two, and then he kind of ups the game a little bit with the platinum, as we'll see. It also comes in a gilded edition that I'll take a look at in a second. But let's get started with the tuck, and we'll start with the copper edition. And the tuck itself is from Close Street Press. He does a lot of his tucks with them. And it's done in this copper bronze kind of color here with black detailing all the way through. And it's kind of got this pearlescent finish here. If I tilt it in the light, you can see a little bit of that sheen on there. But it's just got tons of intricate work throughout. The embossing on this is present, but it's a really, really subtle embossing. So it just gives a feel to the tuck case, but you almost can't even see the embossing as you tilt it in the light. It's that fine of an embossing. And as it says, Invocation in the center, and then you have these sort of bands coming through here. So it's almost like it was kind of wrapped in a bandage, but you can see those kind of intricate designs on all of those different bands going all the way through. And I'll zoom in here just so you can appreciate how much detail went into all these elements. You can see just tons of repeated line work going all the way around the borders. You have little hits of what look like kind of olive branches here. There's Invocation in the center with kind of a circular pattern going out through there. And then that same pattern that we saw on the top is now repeated on the bottom. So really just beautiful, highly intricate and detailed repeated patterns going throughout this entire deck. That design just sort of wraps around to the sides, so you've got more continuation of those intricate details there. Same thing on the other side. And then on the back, you have a modified version of the back design of the cards. And then in the center here features the King's Wild emblem, or that shield there with the KW for King's Wild. And then going around this circle here, you've got lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands so that your daily life will win the respect of outsiders. So that's his signature Bible verse there from Thessalonians. You'll see that mentioned on a lot of his decks. Bottom just has your ad copy for Jackson Robinson. And then there's that Bible verse mentioned again, 1 Thessalonians 4:11. And then on the top, the Invocation. So the name of the deck repeated there. As you open up the flap here, it just says number 13. That's a repeated motif that you're going to see on a lot of the Jackson Robinson decks. He just puts number 13 on a lot of them. Lead a quiet life, an excerpt from that Thessalonians Bible verse once more. Small details here on the inner flaps, and then no printing at all on the interior of the tuck case. That said, you can see the sheen of that tuck case color, that bronze color is really, really nice. So that's it. That is this super highly detailed and beautiful tuck case. I love the artwork that's done on this and just how detailed everything is about it. So there's the tuck case. Let's take a look at the cards, and we'll start with the back design. So this again is the copper edition. So it's a white card with copper metallic inks all the way through. And you can see very similar to what we looked at on the tuck case. You have these sort of bands going through here. And it's an interesting effect that it creates because it sort of tilts the card off center, if you will. Kind of gives you this disjointed feel of almost as if the card's not symmetrical, even though it is, kind of at first glance. So I love how those bands just kind of draw your eye around the card, but at the same time, it still maintains a completely two-way back design that's symmetrical from top to bottom. Or not symmetrical, but it's a two-way back design from top to bottom. So really beautiful artwork done all the way through here. And it's all this just super fine line work. And I'll zoom in on the center here just so you can see that center design and just how detailed and intricate some of those patterns are throughout there. So you have that circular design on the outside and then those bands going all the way through. Again, the olive branch and then just tons of little elements repeated all the way throughout here in this back design. Features a medium to thin poker border, and the corners just slightly break up the border. You can see here that it kind of just breaks out with that dot over there, or these elements here on the edges that just slightly break the border, give it a little bit of extra shade. All of it's done in that copper metallic ink, and just really beautiful design. I'll flip it over to the cards themselves, extra cards. So here's your two jokers, and they represent truth and justice. They both feature kind of a Lady Liberty sort of design. Justice over here has the scales of justice and then that sword of judgment. And she's blindfolded because justice is blind. So a really beautiful design on that one. And then truth is not blindfolded. She has the sword and the book here. And then it says veritas, which is Latin for truth on the book there. There's your two Joker designs. Really nice. And then you get two gaff cards. You get a double backer and a blank facer. Now, jumping into the cards themselves, this is a full custom deck, every single one of them. Starting with the Ace of Spades, it's a fairly simple Ace of Spades design as such things go. You just have an enlarged spade pip in the center, has that olive branch again reaching up in the center, and then sort of a repeated patterns going all the way through there, really beautifully patterned. Your pip and index are going to be customized as well. Slightly customized pip, but very small there. And then the index is done in this really gothic, kind of a cross between like gothic or calligraphy sort of font there going on the ace. You'll see that continues on all the number cards. The pips are going to be really broadly spaced apart. So there's a lot of white space on the cards themselves. They're kind of smaller and spaced out pips. And then that gothic font for the numbers. But the real highlight of this and the real thing that really drew a lot of inspiration from the music is going to be the court cards. And here they are. You can see a lot of the hallmarks and the highly detailed designs of Jackson Robinson in the artwork, but it is a completely custom, completely unique design all the way through. He kind of describes this as kind of a mix between fantasy and sci-fi in these, and you can really see what he's talking about. You know, you've got fantasy from like the king over here with his sword, very epic fantasy type, but then you can see a little bit of like sci-fi elements in like the Queen of Spades here. To me, she looks a little bit like Queen Amidala from Star Wars, kind of has a little bit of that look to her. But really beautifully designed two-way courts and tons of detail in the clothing as well as that band down the center. So really nicely done. They're holding some of the kind of the traditional elements that you might see some of the court cards like in a bicycle deck holding, like you've got the queen holding the flower there, but completely redesigned in Jackson's style there. All completely done in those copper metallic inks as well. So going down to the Ace of Diamonds, you have a very similar to the Ace of Spades design here, but now it's done in this sort of blood red color. And you can see some really nice flourishes on the shape of that diamond. It's not completely square. It gives it a little bit of an interesting look. So there's your diamond number cards, and then here are your diamond courts. Love the design of this. Jack of Diamonds is one of my favorite ones with that Gothic armor on all the way through. And then the Queen and then the King of Diamonds looking off to the side there, and reminiscent of the one-eyed king, if you will. Here's your club courts. Another one of my favorites is the King of Clubs over here, holding, wielding that hammer. So there's your 3 club courts, down through the club number cards. There's your Ace of Clubs. And then your heart courts. And through the rest of the cards, down to the Ace of Hearts. So really beautifully done deck. The copper deck is printed by USPCC and handles just like you would expect, which is just fantastically. Fans, all of that are gonna look really nice with this one. Those metallic inks just really do look quite great in fans. Now, that's the copper deck, but let's take a minute to look at the platinum deck, because this is something really special. And I said this one was printed by USPCC. The platinum deck, though, while the tuck was also done by Clove Street Press, this is actually printed by Cartamundi, and you'll see why in a second. Now, looking at the tuck itself, I have to admit the tuck is a little bit underwhelming compared to the copper. It looks a little bit more like a black and white deck. There's a little bit of a sheen to it, but not nearly as much as you get when you look at the copper deck and that kind of metallic sheen that you get to it. Not nearly as much on the platinum deck. So it comes across a little bit like a black and white deck almost, but same design all the way around on the tuck case. No differences there. So you open it up, you can see there's just white on the inside. But what really makes these stand out is the cards themselves, because they are completely cold foiled. So as I pull these out of here, you can see the cold foiling that is done on these cards all the way through. So starting with the back design, you can see it goes right to the edge. Very similar, like what, you know, if you've seen like House of the Rising Spades or something like that, you have that beautiful foiling all the way through. That same back design, but now done a little bit more of a black and white. That foil is really just popping all the way down. Cartamundi does an outstanding job with foiling. In my opinion, they are the best there is at that. And this deck absolutely shows that off. So there's the back design of the cards. And then if you flip it up, the entire face of the cards, other than the design, is all cold foiled as well. And it's just a really striking look. You can see kind of reflection of my finger there. But here's your jokers going through, and you'll see all of the different designs. Now the Ace of Spades is kind of amped up as well in this one. Has Invocation playing cards, and then designed by Jackson Robinson at the bottom. Features a much larger, so you'll remember the copper just had this simple spade pip in the middle here. This one embellishes it out with this large circular pattern. Includes the Bible verse there around the band, and just tons more detail in the Ace of Spades. And then that cold foiling continues on all of the cards as you go through. Here's a look at the court cards. That black and white design really, really pops against that silver background. It's amazing how well, with a relatively limited color palette, how well this stands out and how well these designs really pop off the page. The Ace of Hearts is going to continue that embellishment. So again, that simpler heart design in the center, but now surrounded with more details compared to the copper. And then there's your heart quartz. There's the diamonds there. There's my favorite there, the Jack of Diamonds. And then down through the number cards. The red looks really good on that silver foil as well. Ace of Diamonds, and then your club quartz. And finishing with the Ace of Clubs. On the back end, you get the same two gaff cards that we got with the copper deck. You have the blank facer and the double backer as the two. So really, really nice. In terms of handling, surprisingly good. And this is another thing that Cartamundi does really, really well. Despite all that foiling, they're still gonna fan and cut really, really nicely. I think they've perfected the art of putting just high amounts of foil on cards and yet maintaining the foiling that you'd be used to. So that is the Platinum Edition, really the standout of this line, and almost a surprise to me. I mean, I knew it was coming, but when I saw the tuck, I was a little bit underwhelmed by it. but the second that I pulled out the cards, it was just sort of a jaw-dropping moment. That's the copper and the platinum editions. Now there are two other versions. There are gilded versions of the deck, and that's these here. They feature a few different changes that I'll just highlight really quickly. Other than the cards themselves being gilded, you also get some differences on the tuck itself. So these are done now in more of a metallic foiling. So you got kind of a black background with more metallic foiling. There's the two side by side just so you can see some of the differences. And they feature this die cut band. A little bit hard to see here, but this band is actually separate from the rest of the tuck case, wrapped around, and as you flip to the back, you can see that they're also numbered. So these are limited to 250 decks. I got number 98. And then the platinum does the same thing. Now you've got silver foiling on here, amped up quite a bit from the standard tuck case, and then also numbered out of 250. So I got 129 there. So there are the two gilded tuck cases, really beautifully done as well to complete this 4-deck set. So that's it. That's the look at Invocation from King's Wild Project. Hope you enjoyed. I definitely did. Love this deck. Always love Jackson Robinson work. So hope you enjoyed this one as well. Subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings. I'll definitely have more of those in the future. Let me know what other decks you want to see. I've got a lot more in the pipeline, but always want to know what you guys are interested in seeing as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.